What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So the other day, we talked about E3 and a report saying that none of the major platform holders would be attending this year. Well, the ESA has now responded, and Nintendo appears set up for a lighter year after Zelda comes out, this being corroborated by IGN, and we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Metal Gear Solid and a spin-off from the series that could be making its return after a decade. And we also have EA to go over as they have now canceled another game. This one, though, might sting a bit. Titanfall fans, you should probably cover your ears. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with God of War Ragnarok. This, of course, coming out a couple of months ago to wrap up 2022, and is one of my favorite games of the year, an absolute classic. Well, it appears it's sold very, very well in its first couple of months on the market, as we can see over on Twitter. This from Sony Santa Monica Studio, saying, "We're incredibly humbled that God of War Ragnarok has officially sold through 11 million copies. None of this would be possible without the support of our fans, so thank you for coming on this journey with us." And that's very impressive. It's on the PS4 and the PS5, and I know the PS4 has a very large install base, but based on what we were seeing through retail tracking, the majority of God of War Ragnarok was selling on the PS5. So that being then also a $70 game, it just shows kind of the quality and the pedigree that we expect out of Sony Santa Monica Studio, what they were able to deliver with God of War Ragnarok, that to many people last year was their game of the year. But definitely worth a pickup at 11 million copies sold now. I wouldn't be shocked if we see this thing go up to 20 or 30 million. Might be able to approach something like the Spider-Man series as we go forward. But hey, Spider-Man 2, I have a feeling that one has the potential to even break what God of War Ragnarok's done here now. Also, ever since the release date was revealed for Redfall, we've been getting more information around the game itself, the structure, and well, the idea of it being always online. Take a look at this. This over on the frequently asked questions page. And they went over all kinds of stuff, like what do the different editions of the game do, like what's in them, what platforms will it release on, that being an Xbox Series and PC, along with cloud-only game. But the one that's a big sticking point for a lot of people, will playing Redfall require an online connection for single player as well as co-op? They say persistent online connection is required for single player and co-op. You'll also need a Bethesda.net account, so that's always fun to sign in and try to remember what your password is for that one, but whew. A persistent online connection required for single player is very frustrating, considering we all have already seen this happen many, many times, where a game just doesn't work out, they shut the servers off, the game's unplayable, right? I understand you need to go online to play multiplayer or co-op. That makes sense, but single player, the online check-in, it didn't work out well for other games that launched to a lot of traffic either, because of server downtime means that the game's unplayable, and that's actually the biggest thing I see here in the future for Redfall. If it launches, a lot of people check it out and it starts crashing and becomes a very unpleasant experience, but I guess we'll see at launch. Oh, and speaking of games shutting down, it looks like Rembleverse is already done. This game came out like 5 months ago, I think. Take a look at this. This posted up over on their website, where they say live services for Rembleverse will go offline on Tuesday, February 28th. They say any player who has spent money on Rembleverse is eligible for a refund of money spent on or in the game. This includes the purchase of Rembleverse Battle Pass or Brawler bills. They call it Brawler. All right, fine. On any platform, we will share an FAQ page with additional refund information soon. This being, it was like kind of a battle royale fighting wrestling game. I tried it out a little bit, and it was kind of funny to suplex somebody off of like this big building. Sure. But it doesn't seem like it caught on like they wanted to. That from Iron Galaxy and Epic Games. Well, I guess now Iron Galaxy should be free to do some work with Microsoft on Killer Instinct. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start with E3 2023. After a report was published by IGN, a lot of people were questioning why the event even exists, since we won't have Nintendo, Microsoft, or Sony there. We've kind of gotten used to Sony just being absent from E3, but Nintendo held up a pretty sizable booth, and of course they would run their Direct alongside of it. Microsoft would have their own event that would just kind of coincide with E3. To my understanding, your badge at E3 would get you into their own event that would happen like a block away, so it appears Microsoft will still have their event, but it won't necessarily be linked to E3 with any kind of branding or cross promotion when it comes to attending it with your E3 badge. But we do have a response from the ESA. This was way of an internal memo that was sent to different members of the ESA board, which does include Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. That's probably a very awkward memo for them to get in their inbox, because we can see this over on IGN, who published it, saying, as you have likely seen, IGN published an article last night about E3. While we are not able to comment on the specific claims in the article, we wanted to share our commitment to moving forward with E3. The rest of this memo is about 4 paragraphs. They don't really say anything. Just that, hey, we're putting a show together, ReedPop's doing a great job, they're transforming it, it's gonna be awesome. They never refuted anything IGN said, which for all of us, we looked at that and said, okay, well, I guess Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft are not attending the event like they have in the past. But there was part of this that really got people talking, because we can see here further down underneath that memo, IGN understands that Nintendo and Xbox were initially interested in having a presence at the event, but that both had to pull out for reasons unrelated to the show itself. VGC has since reported that Nintendo opted not to take part in the event due to a light second half release schedule, not justifying the event space. And then Xbox will be there, but not actually at E3, just a block away. And in that case, it's okay, what are we doing here exactly? We're not really at E3 anyway. Why are we going to do all this cross promotion and other things? So for Microsoft, kind of makes sense, even though they will still have an event at that time, it appears. Now, with IGN corroborating the story from VGC, and even Christopher Dring at Games Industry mentioning this, you saw a lot of headlines pop up, like this one from My Nintendo News. IGN also says Nintendo has no heavy hitters after Zelda Tears of the Kingdom releases on Switch this year. So it's very clear that IGN has a source that is in the know here, as well. The ESA got caught essentially like, oh, okay, Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony aren't going to be there, which we would have eventually found out when they started talking about their plans, the schedule, the floor space. We've been looking for, okay, where's Nintendo's spot? There is no Nintendo. I guess they're just not going to be there. We then would assume that their source would probably have some sort of knowledge as to what Nintendo would be planning for 2023, although that is interesting that they would have one source that would know Nintendo's schedule going forward. However, they could have gotten a response back from Nintendo. Let's say that they are in some way working to organize this event with ReedPop and the ESA, where Nintendo responded, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to be at E3 this year because we don't have a big showpiece title. For example, if Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was coming out in October or November, I have a strong feeling that Nintendo would go to E3 because they would just dress up their entire floor space for Zelda. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that Nintendo's second half of 2023 is going to be light or non-existent. It just would mean that there wouldn't be anything quote-unquote heavy hitting, and it really comes down to how the person describing it describes heavy hitters. They may really like a certain game, like a Metroid or something, but then go, hey, that doesn't sell 10 million copies. But for me, if Metroid Prime 4 was coming out this holiday, I immediately circle that on my calendar. I'm like, well, that's a heavy hitter to me. But I guess if you have things like Pikmin 4, Advanced Wars, and a few others that are on the smaller scale necessarily, especially with Nintendo's marketing budget, because they understand that The Legend of Zelda, easy 20 million unit seller. Pikmin, we're going to try to get this thing past 3 million units or something, right? The cost to doing floor space at E3 for it doesn't really line up. So in that sense, yes, this I would say probably checks out, but there's a lot of nuance there when it comes to heavy hitters, because I feel like we are going to see some of these games get announced from Nintendo for the second half, especially in that holiday time period, that might not light the world on fire when it comes to sales like Pokemon, but might get a lot of us who are plugged in online and really looking at a lot of Nintendo's, lower franchises that aren't a Mario, a Zelda, a Splatoon, a Pokemon, get a lot of us really excited. So we'll see what Nintendo has for us. I think it's going to be kind of soon, with a direct seemingly looming right now, and I guess we'll find out then. Next up, let's talk about EA and how they're basically canceling a bunch of titles. Now, 2 of them, it was sort of funny because I saw many people go, I had no idea there were mobile versions of these games, which we can see posted up over on their website, with the formal announcement around Apex Mobile Legends and Battlefield Mobile. Now, when I looked at this, I thought to myself as well about Battlefield Mobile. I'm like, oh, is there one? Apparently that was actually in development, right? And I think we had talked about it previously, but I didn't see a big reveal for it or any of that myself. So to see that getting canceled doesn't hit me as hard as, well, what we're going to talk about here soon. But Apex Mobile, all right, so they say despite the strong start, the ongoing experience was not great to meet the expectations of our players. After months of working with our development partner, we have made the mutual decision to sunset the mobile game. All right, so EA seemingly moving away from some of these mobile games, and I assume that happens if you're just not seeing the interest like you were hoping to, because we talk about expectations for these companies and they are through the roof. Now quadruple that for phones because of the overall install base is incredible, and most of these games probably won't be able to live up to that hype. Well, here we go. This is from Jason Schreier saying yesterday EA and Respawn quietly canceled a single-player game in the Apex Titanfall universe. According to 3 people familiar, EA will try to find new positions for the 50 or so people who were on the team, but will lay off those who can't be placed. According to some of the sources Jason Schreier had, this was going to be a shared universe single-player experience for Titanfall 2 and Apex Legends, which is a whole thing that people have been speculating online about for a while, to my understanding, that there is crossover there and a shared universe already exists. Seems to me that EA would completely lean into that with the single-player experience. It was project named, again, Titanfall Legends. So yeah, that's great. And they decided to cancel it, according to the report, because the financial projections or revenue projections wasn't up to what they needed it to be. So of course, we never saw this Titanfall Legends game. I mean, it could have been shown and people would have looked at it and said, oh, what is this? But it's at Respawn, and it sounds like it could have been something similar to the Titanfall 2 single player that, I mean, it was really good. That is a great single-player experience. If you've never played it, completely recommended. Many, many times it'll be on sale for $5. That is easily worth the price of admission just to experience that single-player game. And I'm not sure if EA just doesn't have a lot of confidence at all in the Titanfall name, which I guess after seeing what happened with Titanfall 2, although I could also say, hey, you put that at a bad spot between a Call of Duty and a Battlefield. Titanfall 2 is going to be the odd one out here, where Battlefield and Call of Duty will suck up the majority of the consumer spending. I'd still like to see Titanfall get a serious shot once again, and Titanfall 3 might be the move, but having a shared universe with a very popular game like Apex Legends would have only helped, I think, to bring that Titanfall name up a bit and then maybe springboard into that Titanfall 3 release. But unfortunately, doesn't look like we're ever going to know, as Titanfall Legends was, canceled. Next up, let's talk about Metal Gear, and specifically a spin-off for this series. This was one that was more action-oriented. It was called Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Came out in 2013, right at the beginning in February, so it really showed up like at the end of that generation for the Xbox 360 and the PS3, about 9 months before the PS4 and the Xbox One came out. But it was an awesome game. I really liked it, and yeah, it had to do with Raiden, who was, all the cybernetics, a cyborg body, and really someone you saw in Metal Gear Solid 4 that was awesome, and you wanted to just play an entire game as him. Well, they decided to go around, that being Kojima and Konami, and pick up Platinum Games to make the game, and they did, and like I said, it came out, I think, pretty well. But we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary for it later on this month, and we can see this posted up over on Twitter from Platinum Games, saying on February 21st, 2023, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance will celebrate its 10th anniversary since its release. On the day of the event, we will unveil the MGR anniversary art on Platinum Games' official Twitter to commemorate the 10th anniversary, so don't miss it. So, okay, there's been a lot of talk and speculation that there is a Metal Gear event of some kind being put together right now and could be set up for the first quarter or first half of this year. And Konami did surprise a lot of people with how much they had to show during that Silent Hill event. And we had Silent Hill, Metal Gear, and Castlevania all get name dropped ahead of that as franchises that Konami was apparently going all in on, and even looking around at other developers and studios who would want to use the IP to create their own titles. And I mean, it'd be really cool to see Platinum Games not only do some sort of remaster for Rising, but also do a second game, especially now with some of the technology that's out there and what they're able to accomplish on the 360 and the PS3, yeah, sign me up for that. But at the very least, I think it'd be really cool to see them take Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance and port it up to the current platforms with the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and even a revamped version for the PC. It's something that never found its way off of the PlayStation 3 on Sony's side, and for Xbox, we're playing the Xbox 360 version through backwards compatibility on the Xbox Series. And even on PC, some of the options kind of limited. Also, here's a fun fact. Metal Gear Rising was actually ported over to the NVIDIA Shield using a Tegra, so I wonder if they could also drop that on the Switch. So a lot of cool stuff they can do with that, and I'm just hoping that Konami did tap Platinum Games to do the remaster and then also do a sequel, but I guess we'll find out here soon. Again, the anniversary's coming up. Sounds like they'll have some concept art or some kind of illustration ready to show, but maybe they surprise us with the bare minimum of at least that remaster. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about PlayStation and their PlayStation Plus Essentials game, as well as their collection that had a bit of an unfortunate update. As it appears it's going away. Let's take a look though at the PlayStation Plus games for the month of February, which we talked about previously because it was leaked out. Figured we would just go over the confirmation here, which you can see the card with Evil Dead. Then we have Destiny 2 Beyond Light, Ollie Ollie World, and Mafia Definitive Edition. I absolutely recommend Mafia Definitive Edition. Awesome title there to check out. These will be available starting February 7th, so a reminder to also go in and claim any of the current PlayStation Plus games that are up. Again, you just claim them. You don't have to download them for you to keep them or anything. As long as they're added to your account, you'll be good to go back in and download them later on. Which brings me to the PlayStation Plus collection, because it appears that is going away. This from Sony on that same page with the PlayStation Plus announcement saying, on May 9th, the PlayStation Plus collection will no longer be offered. If you haven't redeemed the titles in this collection yet, you can still do so until May 9th, which will enable you to access those titles even after this date for as long as you remain a PlayStation Plus member. So I completely recommend everyone right now who has a PS5 and a PlayStation Plus account, go into this collection and just start adding everything to your library. It'll take a couple of minutes and it'll just be there just in case down the road you want to go ahead and play one of these titles. And there are some good ones in there. Now, people seemed confused, even annoyed as to why this is happening. To my understanding, when they first introduced the idea of this collection, it was essentially to help get PS4 owners over to PS5 and kind of essentially reward early adopters for that PlayStation 5 system with the cross-gen period that, well, it seems to be all but over now, right? With Sony moving ahead, Spider-Man 2 being a PlayStation 5 only title. But just a heads up, make sure you go in and claim everything on the PlayStation Plus collection if you have that PS5 and PlayStation Plus. I guess technically, if you get the PS5 after May 9th, you'll miss out on this collection, which is unfortunate because, as I mentioned, there are some good titles in there, but if you have access to it now, make sure you get that taken care of before May 9th. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you played Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance? Look at this, 67% say no, 33% say yes. To me, there is an audience that people are looking for Metal Gear stuff to play right now. I'm sure they're out there, and you show up with a game that was awesome and it can look even better with the newer technology and consoles. Maybe they push 120 frames. There's a lot of fun stuff they can do. I think there's an audience. I think there's a lot of sales potential for Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance with a remaster at least. So crossing my fingers, Konami, let Platinum Games do their thing and bring us another version of this game to current platforms, and then let them do that sequel. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Argyle saying, so Embracer leased the rights to Tomb Raider for far more than they paid for all of Square's Western Studios and IP, including Tomb Raider. So I wanted to come back to this story because I thought about it a bit after that video had gone out. The $600 million sounds crazy, right? It's way more money than you expect because Amazon could have gone in and I'm sure bought Tomb Raider outright from Square for much less than that. But I thought about this and said, wait a minute, that's technically Embracer would be using the Swedish krone, to my understanding, and maybe the $600 million is actually 600 million krone, and then you convert that over to US dollars and it's 58 million, which I will say this, for Embracer, if they just lease Tomb Raider out to Amazon to build games and make different series and movies, that's still not bad to get back $58 million that quickly of the $300 million that you spent. But that's just kind of my thought on this, because that $600 million certainly sticks out as it's reported currently. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was E3, the ESA responding, and even Nintendo having a lighter second half of the year. Do you think they have a few surprises still, though, up their sleeve? Let me know. And then also, what about EA canceling a single-player Titanfall game that would have some sort of crossover into the Apex Legends universe? And then Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Would you like to see some sort of remaster or even full-on sequel? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.